Welcome to Sid and Malcolm, heard exclusively on malcolmpresents.com. And of course, I'm Malcolm. And to the left of me is Sid Mandelbaum. Good morning, Sid, or good afternoon, Sid.
I'd prefer to the right of you, but
To
right,
the right
left.
of me? It's to the left of me on my screen.
Okay.
And well, you're probably to the right of me anyway,
Oh, yeah, I am, which is good.
politically speaking.
Yes. Well, how are you? How was your New Year's?
Uneventful, a nice quiet time.
Do you have a lot of COVID in your neighborhood at this
I
point?
have a lot of COVID in my family. Both of my sons came down.
Did they have any side effects? Any
No, maybe some sniffling, a slight headache, but that was it.
right?
And now
Same
one has
here.
been, one is like 10 days, so he sort of feels out of the contagious. He's out of the isolation now, and the other one is like 6 days, but he just tested the rapid tested positive.
Okay. So out here, quite a number of our friends have tested positive with no side effects, no any kind of implication that they would have anything.
No,
And some of their family have tested negative. I have a wife tested positive with no symptoms, and her husband tested negative. And one of my neighbors, my next door neighbor, tested positive, as did his wife, and their daughter tested negative. So it is very, very strange, but it feeds into what I believe, which is that there is natural immunity to a lot of this. And those that have taken the vaccine and the booster may be enough to keep them from showing any of the effects, whether they're exposed or not. So it's a difficult time. And in England, they did a study which said that you're most contagious with the Omicron 2 days before you develop symptoms. So you could get a lot of people sick, or at least infected, and not ever know that you did, and they will never know that you were the one that gave it to them.
yeah,
So it's a difficult time that way, but we wear masks when we are inside places, but I don't wear masks anywhere else. Outdoors, I do not wear a mask.
well, I don't wear a mask outdoors if there's not crowds.
Well, it was interesting. I watched a lot of the football games this weekend, and I watched a lot of the bowl games, and those stadiums were filled to the rafters with maybe 1 out of every 20 people having a mask on. So it has. I think the media continues to confuse people as to the severity of this particular variant, which is sad.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm the eternal optimist, and what I feel is sort of like since, at least with this variant, the Omicron, it's like very mild for people who have the vaccinations. I don't know about people who don't have or
Right.
not vaxxed, but it sort of could be like this. Where almost everybody gets it or has parts of it, and they become herd immunity. This could
I
bring the
don't believe in herd immunity on anything,
Oh.
which is why you always have to take, as a child, measles, mumps shots. You need smallpox shots. So even though there possibly at one time was herd immunity, you still have to take all these vaccinations, and that's going to continue. I believe that there'll be a yearly vaccination for this particular virus, but there will be continue to be mutations of it.
Yeah, I don't mind a yearly vaccination for it. If
No, not at all. I just took my flu shot last week.
Yeah, I take it from the flu.
And I was sick with a sinus infection. I have polyps deep in my sinus cavity. They got infected, and they put me on a very strong antibiotic Augmentin. And to shrink the polyps, they put me on a steroid. And the steroid affected my blood sugar, which all steroids do. But I could have had the Omicron probably 2 weeks ago when I had a headache, but I refused to take the test. I don't want to know, since a lot of the tests have shown a lot of false negatives. If I'm not feeling well, I stay home. And if I'm feeling well, I go out. And that's going to continue. So I don't feel like I have a need to take any of these tests.
Okay, now I have an important question. for you.
Hold on a second. Sorry.
Gesundheit.
Thank you. Go ahead now.
Well, now I have an important question for you.
Sure.
Do you think they should fire the Giant coach?
Yes, I do. I think that he has proven himself to be a too much of a man in his own head, and doesn't listen to the GM. And they'll probably fire both. They'll fire Gittleman and they'll fire Judge. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Judge actually had this rant over the weekend that Giant fans should continue to be Giant fans because the team is progressing, and all of this was wrong. They were terrible now 4 games in a row, and with what and the talent that is out there, even though it's been a replacement over the last 3-4 years of the coaches 3 times already.
Yeah.
Fire him and go out and get another coach.
Well, they say part of it is the ownership, which you can't do anything about.
I know the owner. I know half the ownership. I know John Mara pretty well. I've known him for about 17 years.
Yeah, well, the Mara family is one of the original owners, weren't they?
Yes, they were. Wellington Mara's father had bought the team in the 1920s, and then had the team through the 60s. And then Wellington became the owner, and he sold half of it off to the Tisch family. The Tisch family are in the hotel business. Bob Tisch was the half owner, and they let the Maras actually run it. The reality is, Malcolm, that they could run a game with no one in the stands and make a fortune.
TV rights.
The cable contracts are unbelievably high. And you have all of the boxes sold. So you have every box sold at the stadium.
It's corporate boxes.
Rights. There's no one to have anyone in the stands. You have anyone in the stands, that's fine. You could sell beer.
What they do is they sell parking.
They sell parking, and they sell these partial ownerships that you could own your seat. Your seat is $30,000 to $40,000. And you would sell your seat to someone for the $30,000 to $40,000. And I would say more. Half of the seats are these private ownership seats. It was a great idea when they came up with it. The new stadium is now 12 years young, and we've been picking up food there since 2005. This is our 16th season picking up food.
Yeah, well, it reminds me of.
We had a really interesting year. Go ahead.
We're getting difficulty with your signal.
How about now?
A little
Is
bit.
it any better?
It's coming out, yeah.
Oh. Okay. So what wound up happening was the last 2 weeks have been very exciting for us because, number one, we had an amazing Christmas gifting on Christmas Eve day, which was a Friday. And we had over 270 families that were given numbers, and they received close to 6,000 gifts from Rock and Wrap It Up and its donors. And the donors, the main donor was Publishers Clearinghouse.
Wow.
And they donated over 8,000 gifts, which were given to 5 different agencies. But the brunt of the gifts were given out at the Five Town Community Center, and this coming Thursday will be a second gifting. It's a day called 12th Night. It's also called the Day of Three Kings. And we'll be giving another gifting to the community.
Well, I know over here, the Three Kings Day is not that big, but I know when I was in Puerto Rico, Three Kings Day, it was very big. It was bigger than Christmas Eve.
It is the same here, and we're having at least 200 families coming on Thursday to receive gifts.
Well,
And we had a very interesting donation today, which we all laughed at. Costco gave us 800 boxes of Epsom salt.
Epsom,
Epsom
could you ship some of the boxes here? I need it for my feet.
I'm telling you. So every family is getting a box of Epsom salt.
What does Epsom salt do again?
I believe that it changes the osmosis of water, and it's a way of, I guess, opening up. I think it's a vasodilator for your feet, as it is to the rest of your body, and that's why it relaxes. People have been taking Epsom salt baths for years.
Yeah, I know when I think of Epsom salt, I think of putting my feet in water, of Epsom salt water.
Yeah, so it changes the osmosis, and you will have, I guess, a relief if your feet are swollen. So many people have swollen feet. It's a way of releasing some of that.
Does it do any good to the fungus on the toes? On the net?
I don't think so.
Because
you have that problem?
Yeah, I'm starting it, and I try all the things that I put on, and nothing helps.
Right. Cut the nails down as close as you can.
Yeah, but the nail is getting, as I get older, getting thicker. I had to buy special.
You have to get a special cutter.
Yeah, but the problem is I can't get the right angle with the cutter.
Oh, okay. Maybe your wife could help you. Pay her
you ask her. Not you ask her, not me.
$2
She's good, but she won't cut my toes.
There you go. So we had a really nice Christmas, and along the way, I may have mentioned at the last meeting, we had a meeting with Northwell Health, which is one of the largest hospital conglomerates in the world. They own 32 hospitals in the New York area, and there is huge interest in working with Rock and Wrap It Up, and always looking to give more to my veterans and more to people that we try to help. This would be an amazing place for veterans to go to not just get food that we will supply through Trader Joe's and Costco, but they are willing to give prepared meals to our veterans. So they would have fresh fruits and vegetables, as well as meals that were not served at the night shift. Now, the corollary to this is hospital food is as nutritious and nutritionally balanced as any food they would prepare themselves. And I'm always looking at ways to change the health for another reason. If people were in good health from good nutrition, there's a better chance that their immune system will be less compromised, and they'll be less susceptible to any virus, any cold. So if you have people that are in better health, nutrition-wise, you're going to help them overall. And I firmly believe that. We are going to work with the Northwell Health to develop a one-pager, especially for our senior veterans and their caregivers, to show people what good nutrition is and let them have some options that they could read about. One of my other friends read what I wanted to do and then offered to write a paragraph about possible issues that happen when seniors lose a spouse or a loved one. They may be in need of therapy. And this could be a way for people to identify if they have needs that can be fulfilled through a therapist. And I thought that was very positive also. Quite a number of seniors go through PTS when they lose a spouse, just like a soldier would go through PTS when they are in wartime. people that have trauma, emotional trauma, deal with PTS issues as well. And we would offer that as part of this. And this would be all under the Andy Parisi Veterans Toolkit. That is an internet location that we supply services online for people that are at risk. So we're very pumped up by this. And I actually did an interview on Friday. I'll send you a copy when it comes out on Thursday. But Northwell Health and this hospital, which is called Long Island Jewish Valley Stream, reached out to the local newspaper to talk about potentially working with us. And my goal, obviously, is to have this as a signature pilot program and then launch it in their 32 facilities, and then talk about it at national meetings and have the entire country offer services like this to our veterans.
Well, as things progress, let us know, let's talk about it on the show. And then you can always give the show to the other groups to talk about what happened,
Absolutely. They definitely want to do a pilot, and I don't have the time to do that for them. But they've already offered that they have staff that could go to a Trader Joe's and do the food recovery to bring to their hospital. I would set up the logistics for them. I give them the ideas, and I want them to follow through. And
Right.
we're
As I
very
say,
excited.
if there's anything we could do with Malcolm Presents, maybe even do a separate show with them, have them give me a call, contact it, because
I will
think
do that. There are
'cause-
people there, especially their upper management, they see my vision, that this is a great marketing tool for Northwell Health. There are hundreds of hospitals in the New York area, but if Northwell Health could have an edge because they are doing projects like this, God bless them. And the more I could do to help them, the better it is for us.
Yeah, because
Go ahead.
I think Zooming, what's happening, especially since the pandemic, more people are aware of what you can do, individually with just a computer in your house,
Yeah.
and speak to people and get the word out, which is I'm trying to do with Malcolm Presents.
How many programs do you currently facilitate?
I have about 6, 7 shows that I'm also co-host with. Some of the shows, I'm more, I speak with you, it's a one-on-one, but the other shows I have other guests on that I try to stay in the background.
Right.
I mean, I don't want the shows to be about me.
Right. And that's why I try to do more of the talking at these shows.
Right. Well, your business. I want to get out what you're doing. I don't want, I can interject, and what I find out in some of the things, I add some levity to it.
Sure.
I always see the lighter side of things. Getting back to an old joke about, you were talking about losing a spouse. Now, statistically, men get married much faster than women when they're older, when they've been with their spouse for 30, 40 years. And the reason why you ask a man why he's getting married again, men don't know. I mean, this is going back to people in their 70s and 80s. Men don't know what to do. They don't know how to cook. They don't know how to buy food. They don't know how to do the laundry because their wives always did it. Now you ask a woman, does she want to get married? She said, "Are you kidding? Now I don't have to do the cooking. I don't have to do the washing. I'm free at last."
That's very
I think
funny.
I think it's changing with the new generation.
I hope so. We had a meeting a couple of weeks ago where we honored a number of the people that work with the veteran farmers market, and also people that prepared meals for us for Thanksgiving. We had 4 or 5 different groups that cooked the 35 turkeys and the 20 hams, and we gave them certificates. And it's an interesting thing. I'm doing this for 30 years. We became friendly in 1997 with a very young wrestler by the name of The Rock. And
I think I've heard of him.
well, I will tell you that we were doing food recovery from the WWF 97, 98, 99. And the WWF reached out to me and said, Sid, how else could we help you? And I said, you know, we're launching a national school program, and some of your talent would be very, very important to us to attract wrestling fans. So they said, well, our top wrestler is Stone Cold Steve Austin. And this was in 1997, 98. And I said, well, do you think you could ask Stone Cold Steve Austin to sign certificates of merit blank for us, and then we could add kids' names to it that do work? And they said that would be fabulous. Well, when he was doing it, this young wrestler who was just coming up, The Rock, saw Stone Cold Steve Austin doing it, and he asked, what can I do to help Rock and wrap it up? And Rock is in their name. And I said, could you do a PSA for us? And he did. So The Rock did a public service announcement in 1998, and he also signed certificates for us. So now he is the most sought after actor, male actor in the world. It's probably the highest paid actor in the world at this point, is internationally known, goes by the name now of Dwayne Johnson, but he does put in there Dwayne The Rock Johnson. And last week, when we honored all of these people, I used his certificates to honor them. So in their establishments, their restaurants, their country clubs, is a certificate that'll say the Lawrence Club, and under it, honored by The Rock for feeding the hungry.
Okay, Sid, I have a request from you.
Sure.
For you. Let's get him to do a segment of the show, even if it's only 5 minutes, to come on and say hello. I'd love it.
I don't know.
I doubt whether we do it, but I'd love it. I mean, that would be
at this point, you know, but we still have The Rock and Steve Austin certificates. Now, people may not remember Steve Austin anymore. Stone Cold Steve Austin was the wrestler for 5 years in the WWF stable. He was the man.
Yeah,
and then he was replaced by The Rock. Oh my God. You know, it was just a big.
I am so impressed by Dwayne Johnson because number one, I remember him when he was just a wrestler, but I've seen his transition from a wrestler to an actor, and a very good actor. He has so much charisma, it jumps off in the screen.
100%. And I have to tell you his history, which is really nice. His grandfather and his father were professional wrestlers, and his grandmother was an agent for wrestlers from Polynesia and Hawaii.
Wow.
And if you were a wrestler, wanted to be a wrestler from those islands, you would have to see Dwayne Johnson's grandmother, who did your booking worldwide.
Yeah.
So he's been in that business for 75 years.
What's funny, I haven't met that many wrestlers.
Right.
But like living in Los Angeles, I've met, and I'm forgetting his name. It was Cyndi Lauper's uncle. He was a manager. He used to wear the beard and have rubber bands in the beard. But anyway, he played this awful guy, this wrestler.
Right.
One time I met him. He was over at the Universal Studios, or he was having a Universal Hotel, and he was having drinks. And I always go over. I introduce myself. I say, "Oh, I recognize you. I watch you." And generally, they're pretty nice. And he was so sweet, so nice, and he was doing cartoons for kids. That's why he was in town. And it was amazing because on the screen he was. Just you hated him. There was another guy I remember seeing. It was George of the Animal Steel.
Oh my God! I am a fan of 1950s and 60s wrestling. Yeah. I remember George the Animal Steel, Bobo Brazil, Haystacks Calhoun, Happy Humphrey.
You know, oh,
These
my
were the
all-time,
wrestlers of my youth.
who do you think my all-time favorite wrestler is?
Bruno San Martino.
No, no. Uh, oh, and the guy from Argentina Rocca. Remember him?
know.
He used to fight barefoot.
I probably remember him, but it doesn't come to mind. But
Yeah, he was
it
the
used
first.
to be on, it was always a comedy for me. And that we were involved with the WWF, years ago. The PSA that The Rock did for us, I still show because he hasn't changed that much. He really hasn't. His face, his look has stayed the same. Uh, uh, and he had a tagline, after he said, "Now, kids, go out there and make sure that school food feeds the hungry in your communities. If you smell what The Rock is cooking," and he would lift one eyebrow up. That was his signature piece. And we actually use that because we own it. It was given to us by the WWF in 1998, 24 years ago. And he was only 24 years old. He's going to be 50 this year, Dwayne
Wow.
Johnson.
Yeah,
So-
he had this series on, I think it was HBO, where he played an ex-football player who became an agent. I don't know if
Oh,
you saw
that I
that.
didn't see. I know that there's a program called Young Rock that is on either CBS or NBC that like they have Young Sheldon
Yeah.
from the Big Bang Theory. This is Young Rock, and it's about him as a kid. And I'm
Oh.
sure it's going to do well for the same reasons. But when you're around a long time like our charity is, we really have come up with people. One of our stars, when he wasn't a star, was a singer named Darius Rucker. Now, Darius Rucker is not known well outside of country music now. He's one of the top country music singers, but he was the lead singer of Hootie and the Blowfish, which were huge in the 1990s and early 2000s. When we met Hootie and the Blowfish, they were not well known yet, and they signed up with Rock and Wrap It Up. We did their food recovery in 1996, and then in 1999, he was touring on his own with a woman named Sarah McLachlan, who was running something called the Lilith Fair, which was a concert of all women bands, except for Darius Rucker. And Darius Rucker was asked backstage by a film crew of a very new channel called Food Network in 1999, when no one heard of the Food Network, and they did a program called Rock and Roll Chefs. And it talked about chefs that were cooking for rock stars. And they interviewed Darius Rucker, and he said, "Oh my God, if you're doing this program, you have to look up Sid Mandelbaum of Rock and Wrap It Up." And they did. And we got a huge 10-minute piece on the Food Network on this program, Rock and Roll Chefs. And it was picked up by none other than Dan Rather, who did a 10-minute piece on us in 2000. And that really launched us nationally because 50 million people saw the Dan Rather piece. And it was a piece spoke about my parents being Holocaust survivors, my inspiration to feed the hungry, the bands that we were working with. And all of that made it. And it was all because of Darius Rucker, who we knew when he was an unknown, University of South Carolina, and just had his first band, Hootie and the Blowfish.
You should do a biography of, not you, of Rock and Wrap It Up.
I wrote a book about it. It's called The Hunger
really?
Manifest. Yeah, I have. I'm writing my second book right now, but I wrote the book, and it's self-published. It's available on Amazon, and it's called The Hunger Manifesto.
The Hunger Manifesto?
Yeah, and
Sid Mandelbaum?
yeah, and the book I'm reading now is called Folio of Wild Poetry and Prose.
Wow.
And that I am 3/4 done with. I just added a chapter, actually, last Sunday, of an incident that happened in 1942, which is why I am here today. In 1942, my mother and her sister and their family were part of a selection in their town And those that went to the right lived, and those who went to the left were killed. They didn't know it at the time. But my mother's older sister, Regina, was 18, going on 19. She was selected to work with her father, and my mother and her two younger brothers and mother went to the left. And for whatever reason, it occurred to my aunt, my mother's sister, you know what? Something's wrong here. And she was able to sneak to a place where my mother was, and she convinced my mother begrudgingly to leave and go with her. And that night, my grandmother and my two uncles were killed in Auschwitz-Birkenau. Gas burned up, never like they never lived. And my mother survived because her sister had the vision and reading the situation to save her life.
Wow.
So that's one of my chapters.
Yeah,
I'll send you a copy of it.
okay. Well, that's what I always said. Is there a plan in life? I don't know. I don't know. It's fate. It's who knows what will happen. It's well, death you can't. If someone gets killed, they get killed. But it's the people that are alive.
That can tell the story.
Yeah, they have a choice of what they could do. Life can defeat them, or they could take it and become successful.
I've always run with it because I know that in my back of my head, it's there by the grace of God go I.
Yeah.
There were a million reasons why my father could have been killed, who was also in concentration camps, and my mother. And yet they survived, married, came to America, had me and my sisters. And I feel an incredible debt to God and debt to the world that I was given life for a reason. And a lot of it is what I do to return the favor.
Well, I love your story when you were at the Eastern Wall with the Eastern Wall, yeah, with the Western Wall. How come I think, well, what is the Eastern Wall? That's the Muslims?
No, I don't think there's an Eastern Wall.
But the Western Wall.
There was a Berlin Wall.
Maybe. But I love that story about the epiphany you had with your father, and both of you had it and shared it. But anyway, under that note, our time has run out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so I think this was a pretty good follow-up show.
Yeah, I mean, time with us goes fast.
Yeah, it does.
It's amazing what you do, and again, even though it's late, I'm really proud to know you, and I'd like to get your story out.
Thank you.
And get more people involved.
How's Pat working out? Pat's great also.
Pat's great also. He's a dedicated guy, but he's going to be well, you're part of the American Legion also.
Yeah, I'm commander, and Pat is actually the Nassau County commander.
Nassau County.
Of all American Legions in Nassau County. And, Pat is such a great man as a human being that people want to help him.
Right. And well, you're talking about people want to help, such as yourself. I think you
know what? I tend to attract people like him, and I'm attracted to people like him.
Yeah. The people who think alike, hang out together.
We also have to do things. I'm not a talker. I'm a doer. And that is what separates. Other people have great ideas, but to have great ideas and then follow through is really what it's about.
Right.
It's not enough.
What I like to think of myself as a uniter.
Yeah.
I gather people. I'm not talented in any of the.
You are a networker supreme.
Right. Thank you. And any event, the show will be on, later today. Let all your friends know. It's
absolutely
MalcolmPresents.com, and it's Sid and Malcolm. It's mainly Sid, but it's Sid and Malcolm. And we have all the back shows, so they could listen to all the shows to see how you're over the last year, how Rock and Wrap It Up developed and how you developed.
Well, I will get this out, and I'll send you that piece that I wrote on my bravery of Regina.
Okay, thank you much. And anyway, again,
see you next week.
Yeah, and see you next week, and have a great. Let's have a great year together.
Absolutely. Thanks, Malcolm.
Bye-bye.